And the essence of a campaign message would be something like, fellow Americans, almost everything you've been conditioned to believe about the making and sustaining of this conflict is not true. Now, I devoted more than 5 years of my life to researching and writing the original version of this 3-volume book. My purpose was to provide you and others with a powerful weapon to make the winning of the war for the truth of history possible. The book is about much more than its title suggests. Its title, as you know, is Zionism, the Real Enemy of the Jews. A longer title could have been, it isn't the Arabs who are the real enemy of the Jews, it's Zionism's brutal and increasingly Nazi-like colonial enterprise. Now, the book is also updated to President Obama's surrender to the Zionist lobby, and it's the first ever book to tell the complete story of the making and sustaining of the whole conflict, replacing Zionist mythology with the documented facts and truth of history. And it's long for this reason I've given events in the region global context. So I take my readers as the story in the Middle East is unfolding behind closed doors in London, Washington, Paris. So what I've set out to write, I've said, look, here's this great nation of 300 Americans, and only 7.5 of them have any idea of what's happened. They could start out with my book knowing nothing worth knowing and end up seeing how all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle fit together. So I've done my bit, I think, with this book. But I think it makes me very angry. If I'd written a pro-Zionist book, I'd have had wealthy Jews throwing money at me for promotion of all kinds. My experience to date is that wealthy Arabs, including wealthy Palestinians, are frightened of offending Zionism to assist my efforts to make informed debate possible. Now, I think that they, like most activist groups, have no understanding of how you change lobby-driven policies in so-called democratic nations. There is only one way to do it, by informing and educating the citizens, the voters, empowering them to make their democracy work. When enough citizens want something done, it will be done. That's the way the system works. So I'm asking you tonight to make actually good use of my book and become actively engaged. I'm echoing something which the lady in blue here said this evening, I think. And become actively engaged in educating your fellow Americans to make democracy work. Now, I am, of course, aware that there is a reason why some, and perhaps many Arab and other Muslim Americans, think that it's too dangerous and that they should keep their heads down and their mouths shut as they see it in order to best protect themselves, their families, their careers, their businesses. The reason you don't need me to tell you, but I'll tell you I know what it is. The monster of Islamophobia is on the prowl and licking its lips across America as it is in Europe. And on the surface, that's quite a good reason to keep your head down and your mouth shut. But backing away from this monster is not the way for Americans and other Western Arabs and Muslims to protect their own best interests. The best way, I say, is for them to play their ace card. What is it? I call it the patriot card. Regardless of ethnicity, the one thing above all others that Americans are required to demonstrate in order to be regarded by their fellow citizens as safe and sound is patriotism, right? That's the bottom line. Now hold on to that thought while I make this short statement. The best recruiting sergeant for violent Islamic fundamentalism in all of its manifestations is the double standard of American-led Western foreign policy, particularly as it relates to the conflict in and over Palestine that became Israel. General Petraeus and apparently President Obama now accept that the support of the Zionist State of Israel, right or wrong, is not in America's best interest and is actually damaging them. So I say to you this: by helping your fellow Americans to understand this, you would not only be presenting yourselves as real patriots and therefore protecting your own best interests, you would be helping to expose supporters of Israel, right or wrong, for what they are: brainwashed, deluded and plain wrong at best, and a threat to real national interests at worst. Some will even call them traitors. Now, I've censored myself greatly in this talk this evening because I know food is coming and you'll be hungry. But I'll close by reading the first sentence of Volume 1 of the American edition of my book and adding a comment. The sentence is this: Dear Americans, if all of our children, wherever they live, are to have the prospect of a future worth having, the world needs America's best, not what it had under the neocon regime of President George W. Bush, its worst. So, friends, my appeal to you this evening: if you really care about stopping the final ethnic cleansing of Palestine, keeping hope for justice and peace alive, and best protecting America's own real interests, become engaged in the war for the truth of history and play your necessary part in helping to bring out the best of America. Thank you very much.